Welcome to the shop, everybody. Today I'm going to be building a guitar. I have here some pieces of red spruce to be gluing together for a top. So I'm going to be using this little makeshift jig to clamp the top together. So there's a piece that goes straight down the middle and these pieces here on the sides. These are just to hold it up. So I'm going to line this up here and then take the other little temporary makeshift jig, put it on top. And I have this strap that we use at the sawmill to strap up all sorts of things that I'm going to put around one of these initially to start it off. This is going to work. This will be good. Now it's time to do this for real. Well, there you have it. I will get back to this tomorrow or whenever I get a chance to work on it. It's another day, and I'm going to take this thing apart and see what it looks like on the inside. I think that it did a pretty good job for a makeshift jig. This side here is the actual front side. The other side would be like the inside of the guitar, and it looks quite nice. Yep. So, my jig worked, but I kind of screwed up the joint beforehand. I had a jig like this before. I got rid of it at one point. Not because it didn't work, just because I was getting rid of stuff and it wasn't all that good. I mean, it worked good. It just whatever. Anyway, wasn't the jig's fault, but my preparation work before going and actually putting this together wasn't good enough. I thought that I had sanded the joint smooth enough and straight enough that it was going to glue together, but maybe because I did that probably 2 or 3 months ago, maybe it warped enough that it didn't glue right. Maybe if I would have glued it and clamped it with crazy amounts of pressure, it would have worked just fine. But that's all beside the point because it didn't work. It doesn't really matter what I could have done differently to do this better. I got to do it better now. So I'm going to take it on the table saw and I'm going to cut it apart down the middle, and I'm going to redo the edge and make it right. Make sure that it glues together right this time. Glue it together again, and that will be a lot better. I've got my handy dandy piece of Ubatuba. Bet you never get to say that before. This is a piece of Ubatuba granite. It would be a little, not backsplash, but just a piece that goes up behind the countertop. Anyway, I was given it. It's nice and smooth, nice and straight. Double check that. It should be nice and straight. It should be like perfectly straight. Straight? I guess this granite's not. This handy dandy piece of Ubatuba is not perfectly straight. That's not suitable. Well, never mind then. Let's go look at my other pieces of granite. This is a different piece of granite. This is not Ubatuba, I think. I don't actually know what this one is. But that's not really the point. It doesn't really matter because this one is perfectly straight. This one's perfectly flat. The nice thing about granite is it doesn't flex, it doesn't warp, it cracks, it breaks, but it doesn't bend. Or if it does, it doesn't bend much at all. Right now, stores are closed and whatnot. I don't really feel like going to get anything because of the coronavirus, but that's irrelevant. If I could, I'd get pieces of one-side sticky tape. Oh, it's raining. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but it's raining. I'm going to keep paving. I'm going to keep recording. I don't really care too much. If you can hear it, suck it up. If I had some spray adhesive, I'd use the spray adhesive. I don't have that. I'm going to try stretching it and clamping it on both ends with a little block of wood. Hopefully that works. Let's see. So I get this little bit of leverage here from just a little block of wood in order to be able to stretch this tight, and yeah, this should work just fine. So once I stretch it tight, I'll clamp it in place, and hopefully I'll be able to sand very flat surfaces. Obviously, if you're a woodworker and you're looking at this and you don't know about lutherie, you'd be thinking, well, why don't you just use a jointer? I have a jointer. I used a jointer on it already. Jointers don't do a straight enough edge. They don't do it perfectly straight. You want to be able to get a joint that's so flat and so smooth that you can't even see the glue joint at all. You don't want to be able to see it. Once I'm done, you'll see what I'm talking about, hopefully. Alright, so I got my granite down here with the sandpaper and a piece of plywood clamped on the table saw fence. That's the reason I have this on the table saw. It's just to make sure that, to get a nice square fence. So this works really well. It's a nice, quick and easy, simple, half kind of cheating jig to make, to be able to use it to sand things very, very straight, very, very smooth on one edge. So this is basically a jointer, but for sanding when it's already pretty much there. If you're doing this for a rough piece of wood to make it straight in order to cut it, it would take you forever, obviously, but that's not really the point. So, just gonna make nice, even passes, and I'll be checking it to make sure I'm getting rid of all of the table saw marks. This looks great. I've looked at it up to the light and whatnot, and you can't see through. That's how you can tell that it's a very good joint. It's going to be good. Well, this might be a bit of a monstrosity with all the little bits of wood that I threw in there, just for extra measure to make sure everything was very tight. Should be good. I'll check it again in the morning and, well, tomorrow, whatever, some point tomorrow. Anyway, I'll check it again tomorrow, see how it looks, and hopefully the joint's good. And if the joint's good, then I'll be able to keep going. So the next step on this, assuming that this joint works, is that I will cut it to shape. Roughly, I'll make it a little bit bigger than it needs to be, and I'll be able to thickness sand it down to 1/8 of an inch. Actually, that's a lie. I'll be able to thickness sand it down a little bit bigger than 1/8 of an inch in order to put the rosette in, and then I'll finish thickness it after that, put it down to the right proper size. So I need to do some designing to design the rosette. So here's my plan for my sound hole and rosette and whatnot. None of this is to scale. These are all just guesses. So I'm going to make a 3.5 inch hole for the sound hole for a parlor guitar. That's one of the standard sizes. There's no real standard size for it, but that's what I think would be best. Typically, the smaller the sound hole, the more bassy the instrument's going to sound, and a parlor guitar is not typically very bassy of a guitar. So I think it'll give it more of a full sound to do it with a smaller, slightly smaller sound hole. Just for perspective, normally on like a dreadnought it'd be a 4-inch sound hole, so 1/2 inch smaller. So I'm going to have this section here. This line is the sound hole. This is the rosette on the outside. That's probably going to end up being sumac. I don't think sumac's a native wood to Nova Scotia, but I have some that was grown in Nova Scotia and we cut it at the mill, so it counts as far as I'm concerned. It's just as native to Nova Scotia as white-tailed deer. They're not native to Nova Scotia, but they are very abundant here. So I'm going to use deer antler for this little piece here and this little piece here. Now this section of it's going to be covered up by the fretboard, which is going to be curly maple. Yeah, so sumac, deer antler, curly maple, 3.5 inch sound hole. The next day, let's open this up and see what it looks like on the inside. Yep, this should be good. I flipped the whole design around from what I was planning originally and put it closer to the bottom because I wasn't quite happy with this part up here, but a good amount of this is actually going to be cut out for the truss rod here towards the top of the guitar where the neck joins on and the sound hole and whatnot. It's good. There's nothing wrong with that. This section here wasn't the best, but that's not even in the guitar, and the part that is going to be cut out. So my next step is going to be doing the rosette, because I've actually flattened this out with the hand sander, looking at the joint, trying to make sure that the joint is good. So this is nice and smooth enough for putting in the rosette, so I can start working on that. So I need to find my tools for that. I don't know where they are. Alright, slightly terrifying time right now. I have, I found it. Found my jig. This was sitting behind me the whole time. I went looking all over the place for it. You guys are probably laughing at me because you've seen it in the background of the video. Anyway, I found it. I had to clean up the actual bass part. I had to take it all apart and grind off all the rust because it was kind of rusty. So I've got these little bits that I bought on eBay. They're end mill bits. They should be good. I will double check and make sure first. Well, actually, I just did. I just did a little tester here to make sure the whole thing was working. In this piece of MDF here, it cut fine. It cut pretty good, so it should be good. So the plan here, this is how this jig works and what I'm going to do. So it's got a Dremel on it, which has a little bit in it there, and this goes on a pin that I'll drill a hole for. It's a 3/16 of an inch pin right in the center. I'll drill a hole, and I can adjust this piece in and out to get it just where it's got to go. So once I've got that planned, I will line it up to my different lines. I'll actually make proper lines that are very, very nice, easy to see lines to get the bit lined up where I want it, to make sure everything is just right. And that will work just fine. So I will make a hole in this first, and then I'm going to get my piece of sumac, cut it down to the right size, get it all ready to turn into this piece, the piece that I need for this, and route it out for this here. And the antler I will cut by hand, probably, and bend. Well, no. I don't know, I'll figure that out when the time comes. I'm not there yet. Anyway, so that's basically what I'm looking at. This right here is my piece of sumac. I could just cut a piece out of this. Obviously it's too thick, but I could just cut a piece out of this and route it out of it, just in one whole piece. So it is more than big enough. There's a lot of kind of doty stuff here going on. And I can see part of the core here, so I'll have to make sure I miss all that. This thing's got a lot of interesting color to it. Right now it just looks brown, but once it's actually finished, sanded and whatever, not just sitting out in the open for like 4 or 5 years, 6 years, whatever it's been, it actually is kind of green colored. It's nice. It'll look good. Yeah, well, I'm going to cut the channel for the sumac and antler to go into the top, and if I screw it up, just a piece of wood, I can always get another one. Pretty good, but a little bit of cleanup work to do in here. So I'll just do that with the chisel, taking off some of the burrs. Yeah, so one thing that I thought of while I was cutting this that I could do is put the sumac in and then make another little tiny route between the sumac and the spruce in order to put in a little tiny thin strip of the cherry birch. I think that'll tie everything together quite nice. So there's going to be a small little, like 1/16 of an inch or less maybe, strip of cherry birch, sumac, the antler in 2 parts, and then a nice little thin strip of cherry birch again. That way as well, if the joint's not perfect from the sumac, then the cherry birch will do a nice job cleaning that up. There we go. So I've got some pieces here to show you what kind of see what the color is. Obviously you can see that this piece is faded quite a lot. This has no finish on it. It's just a rough cut piece of wood. Say it's rough cut. It looks like it's been possibly planed, but anyway, it's just been sitting out for a long time. So this piece is cut bigger than I need it to be. Obviously it's way thicker than I need it to be, so I'll have to joint it and I don't know, cut it on a bandsaw or a table saw or something to get it down smaller. I don't own a bandsaw, but my dad does. I can use that. Go. So I got the center part out. That's just garbage now. Kind of looks like a little coaster. I was using my jeweler saw and a little makeshift yoke here to be able to cut out the rosette from the backing, or well, from the backing, just the back part. If you cut the whole way through with the router, then you can screw things up pretty easy. So you usually leave a little bit of a backing and then cut out a little bit of the rosette. Garbage, and now let's see how this fits. Make sure it's not just a burr. Okay, here we go. So trimmed all this down, got it all done up with the chisel, got all the burrs off. I had to take a little bit off on the outside of the actual hole in order to make it fit, and now it fits just fine. I can actually get it right in there real good. So I'm going to glue this. And to clamp it down, I've got some slabs of granite I can use sitting over there. Put one down on it on the flat and stack a couple more to make sure it's got a lot of weight. And this should work really good. I'm going for it. I'm doing it. There you have it, folks. I guess I'll let this dry overnight, and at some point I'll be able to look at this again and clean her up and then start putting in other parts. Well, there we go. I'm going to leave this here, let it dry, and I'll clean it up whenever I work on this again. Clean up all the glue, make that flat enough so that I can put the antler in and the other parts of cherry birch. I think that's enough for one part. This is part one. I hope you've enjoyed part one of my build. I'll keep going. I'm going to build this guitar right through. Not much point stopping now or anything, so this will be good. So why don't you follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can keep it up to date on what's going on. On Instagram, I keep posting updates, little updates here and there of what's going on behind the scenes, what I'm videoing and whatnot. Pictures of different parts, like designing the rosette and whatnot. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, and I'll catch you on the next one.